All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is Nithya Ramachandra from the NR Hour Sports Show. This is episode 969. Happy Friday, everyone. Heading into the weekend and big playoff games coming up this Sunday, which I can't wait for it to happen. We are joined by a special guest today. His name is Colin Cole. He's a former Iowa NFL defensive tackle. He played for Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, Seahawks, and the Panthers. Really looking forward to this interview. And he also has a podcast called Legends of Kinnick, which we'll get into also. We are live on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, on all the podcast platforms. So fans, please tune in. And there's an area where you can ask questions for Colin too. So please ask questions. And first of all, Colin, thank you for joining the show. First of all, how are you and your family doing? And we finally made it happen.
Finally made it happen, Nathan. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on the show. I know we've gone back and forth over the last number of weeks to try and set this up, and I'm glad we can finally do it, man. So thank you for having me.
Hey, it's truly an honor to have you on the show today, and what a great career you had. But first of all, I want to start off with your childhood growing up. You were born in Ontario, Toronto. So what was it like growing up there? And when did you get interested in the game of football?
So to be honest, I was probably about 4 or 5 years old when I left Toronto to move down to South Florida. And when I moved to South Florida, I moved with my grandmother, mainly because of health reasons. I was developing really strong pneumonia and bronchitis because of the cold weather in Canada. So getting down to the South Florida warmth was really what I needed. And so, just growing up in the environment of being down in South Florida, kids, football is one of the number one, obviously the number one sport to play as a youth and growing up in South Florida. And it was definitely a great opportunity. I mean, I grew into my body, but it was always awesome to be out there playing with my friends and the others in the neighborhood, and kind of developed my love for and passion for football early on as a youngster. So. And, it was just something that kind of took to naturally. I was naturally a big kid growing up. And so it was hard to tackle me. And it was one of those things that kind of was an icebreaker in terms of making friends and that kind of thing. So yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it as a youth, and then took to it in high school, and, took off from there.
Yeah, so I seen your background. You got the helmets from your former teams, and you're repping the Carolina Panthers. So I'm gonna. Did you have like any role models that you looked up to in the NFL while growing up?
Role models while growing up. So I guess, like I said, it was fun playing with friends. And like I mentioned, one of the things was it was tough. I liked the sport because it was one of those things. Again, as being a big kid, it was easier for me to make friends because I was more talented on the football field, and I had a lot of fun running with the football. So I guess a couple of guys. I mean, I always looked up to Jerry Rice as a youngster. I always looked up to his ability, obviously, and what he was able to accomplish. Because I was a bigger kid, my friends nicknamed me Natron Means as a youngster. So I kind of grew up watching him, and being a bigger guy, bigger running back. I kind of thought that at some point maybe that could be me, but I didn't realize how much bigger I would continue to grow to. So it was, growing up, those were kind of those guys that I really liked watching. But as I got into high school and grew into being a defensive lineman, watching guys like the Reggie Whites and Warren Saps and all those guys along the defensive front that really kind of took that position to the next level. Those are the guys that I kind of watched to kind of see and model how I should play my game.
Yeah. So speaking of, obviously before choosing defensive tackle permanently in the NFL, did you get to learn any other positions in high school or the Pee Wee football, or did you get to learn any other positions before settling on defensive tackle? Because coaches now these days love players who can be versatile.
So sure, when I was younger, on junior varsity, I got an opportunity to run the football a little bit. I played some tight end on varsity. I played all over the field in high school. Also wrestled in high school, so I was a state champion wrestler. So that really was what helped me and helped bring my game to the next level in terms of how I played football. Just everything that all that came along with being a wrestler was really would help me develop my game on the football field and take my game to the next level. So all of those things were really, really big portions of what helped me grow in my game overall.
What did you learn? Excuse me. What did you learn as a high school football player, and what piece of advice what main piece of advice did you get from one of your coaches in high school?
Work ethic, just showing up every day, regardless of anything else. You know, a lot of people show up and are more concerned with looking a certain way, dressing a certain way, those sorts of things. But, you know, one of the main things that I learned from my defensive line coach, Benny Cook, in high school is that you have to show up with a lunch pail mentality. It doesn't matter what you have on your feet, doesn't matter what the jersey, how it looks, all that kind of stuff. What matters is who you are and how you perform, and working on a daily basis to really sharpen that tool and sharpen your craft was what I learned early on in terms of how to put in work and what kind of work goes into becoming a good football player.
Yeah, so your jersey number 34 got retired in high school, and what did that mean to you? What was that like for you?
You know, it was pretty cool to have. I was probably one of the first guys out of my high school to play in the NFL, and it was an honor to have that bestowed upon me. And you know, it was really one of those things that, you know, just work through hard work and, you know, giving back to the school. It was just one of those great opportunities, and thankful for them to have done that. And you know, it's pretty cool. You know, not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah. So now tell our fans about your college recruitment process. Obviously, you went to Iowa. How many offers did you get coming out of high school before choosing Iowa, and what was the reason that you chose Iowa College?
So I had a few offers, a few opportunities. I visited. Let's see. I visited South Florida. I visited UConn. I visited Virginia Tech. Also visited. Who else? Can't think of who else right off the top. But I took some visits and I had some different thoughts. And honestly, I was really. I like Virginia Tech. I like Blacksburg to an extent. I like some of those other places. But what really stood out for me at Iowa is kind of that Midwest down home type of friendliness. That was one of the things that really stood out for me. And the other thing is, again, being a high school wrestler, Iowa's a big wrestling institution. So they got me up there during a wrestling meet for my recruiting visit. And, you know, I just kind of got that atmosphere, and I really enjoyed what I was feeling when I was there. So, you know, there were other schools that were on the table. University of Florida was one of them. You know, I actually looked at Miami as well. But, you know, I kind of was in a position where I wanted to get out of state of Florida at that point, and really just kind of set out and do something a little different than the norm. So that was, you know, not to mention that was probably the best opportunity to play early and play right away, which is what I wanted to do. So that's really was one of the main decisions in going to the University of Iowa. Not to mention my position coach, Ron Aiken. I would be remiss if I didn't mention him. Being a Black man, you know, especially going to a place like Iowa, where obviously it's a predominantly white institution, you have to find individuals that you would obviously feel most comfortable with. And regardless of all the institutions that I visited, I felt most comfortable with that man in terms of who I knew I would be coached by for the following 4 to 5 years. And he and his family are really what, amongst others, what helped me moving forward in terms of being able to see through the recruiting process and see past some of the early difficulties in terms of environments and that sort of thing. But it was great having those individuals be there for me. And yeah, that was part of my process.
Yeah. So speaking of that, having the right people around you, the support system, especially for an athlete when they're making a big change from high school to college or to the pros or going overseas. How important is it for an athlete to have that the support system and the people you feel most comfortable with while making that huge transition in your life?
You know, I think that it goes unsaid how important support is for any athlete, no matter what situation you go into. You got to consider most individuals that come out of a high school going into college. Their first time, obviously, away from home, first time on their own and making decisions on their own, sort of thing. So it's highly important to have individuals that are there as support to obviously guide you. I know, it's good to have parents, obviously, and those that care for you or caretakers. Those ones are always going to be the ones that are going to have the best for you. But to have individuals, especially mentors, that you can go to and talk about various things that you more than likely couldn't talk to your parents about, to be able to bounce ideas off who we're going to look at you as a young adult more so than as a child. Those are the people that are important to have as support. And so for me, like I mentioned before, it was a big culture shock coming from South Florida, going up to the University of Iowa. It was huge culture shock. And so it was really difficult for me for my first semester, so much so that I was on academic probation. I didn't really see myself being there any longer because of the fact that I just didn't feel like I fit in. And so for me to really dig in that following semester and seek out and find those mentors that were there really helped me to make that transition and find a way to work through my 4 years at Iowa, and really turned out to be the best 4 years of my young life.
Wow. Yeah, right now, guys, please tune in. We are live with former Iowa, former NFL defensive tackle Colin Cole, and also former wrestler. So please tune in and ask some questions to fans. So I want to ask you about your experience at Iowa. Obviously, you said big culture shock, but eventually you got used to it. You settled in. So what was it like playing for Iowa Hawkeyes? A great tradition, great football program. They always compete in a high level. So what was that like, the atmosphere like for you in front of the fans?
Man, to be honest, I'd say that the first 2 years sucked. It was terrible. My first year is 1-10. My second year we were 3-8. That first year in particular, man, we lost to some teams in that first year of Kirk Ferentz coming in to the program. I was a part of that first recruiting class. We weren't very good. We didn't have a lot of talent. We didn't win very many games. Actually, we won one game, and that was to Northern Illinois, if memory serves correctly. And I also remember that our fans stormed the field for that win. And so it was tough that first year. And again, with that homesickness coming from South Florida up there to Iowa and losing like that, man, that was kind of adding to the interest in possibly not staying at the university at first. But again, we then turned the following season into a 3-8, I believe, campaign. Kirk Ferentz found some more cornerstone players in this program, and then my junior year, 2001, the program turned the corner and made it to the first bowl game of Kirk Ferentz's tenure. And that year, 2001, was really a year that was filled with a lot of guys who kind of came together and were tired of losing, more or less, and really decided that they were going to take it upon themselves to say, one way or another, the games were going to be decided by the men that were in the room, and circumstances that were there years prior, and whatever reasons and the choice of coming up with whatever excuses, we had decided that those were no longer allowed in the room. So in 2001, we turned the corner. We decided that, it was going to be on our shoulders, and we made it to our first bowl game. Like I mentioned, it was the Alamo Bowl, which we took a victory against the Cliff Kingsbury-led Texas Tech Red Raiders, who was, as you may know, is the Arizona Cardinals head coach right now. So, and then 2002, we had our historic season, 10 or 11-1, and Orange Bowl berth. So, it was a tumultuous few years in terms of figuring out who was best fits under Kirk Ferentz, and then trying to find and fine-tune a team. It's not easy in college, especially when a new head coach comes in, trying to figure out who the best players are for your team, not just best athletes on the football field, but best people who are people who are more so for the team. And a lot of times those coaches come in, they struggle with the former coaches' players because of the fact that that former coach may have promised them a lot more than they were able to produce. And then that player that's then left with that head coach gone has to deal with a new person, and that person may not necessarily agree with the talents that they have in front of them. So it's tough to build a team when you're coming in. And me coming in on the front end of Kirk Ferentz's tenureship was definitely it. It was eye-opening. It was good to be a part of. And now him going into now his 23rd season at Iowa, man, it's tremendous to see how consistent the program has been in terms of just consistently putting out a good product year after year.
That's amazing. And okay, we do have a fan question who just came in. One of our fans want to know the scouting report on Colin Cole as a wrestler.
The scouting report on Colin Cole. Well, I tell you what, one thing that I know about myself as a wrestler, I brought the football mentality to the wrestling mat. I was going to try to spear you like Goldberg, and I was going to try to do whatever it took. But you know, the thing about it, I never lost to Penn, and in my junior and senior year, I had one loss, and that was in the semifinals of state. So it's tough, man. It's tough. You know, that guy is he was elusive. He was strong. He was something else. That's for sure.
Yeah. So tell us about what would you say your best moment was, or best experience was, best game that you had as an Iowa Hawkeye in your career?
Best game as a Hawk. Oh man. Statistically, you know, I had a few good games in 2001 when I played defensive end and defensive tackle. But I would say, and I had some good statistic games and as a senior, but my senior year, after we had won our final regular season game, and to have gone to been a part of a rebuild process that took a team from being 1-10, you know, in that first year, 1999, where it just was terrible, honestly. And that 2002 team is one of the best teams in Hawkeye history that completely turned the tables from that 1-10 start to a 10-11 program. So to walk off the field as a senior, the last game I played against Minnesota was probably the highlight of my collegiate career.
Oh, yeah. So speak on can you tell our fans about the program at Iowa, and what do you like about it heading into the right direction? And obviously a great coach for 23 years. That's amazing. So what do you like about the program now? And if you want to go way back, I remember one player from Iowa, Kevin Casper, the receiver, if you remember him. This guy was a great receiver there. But so what do you like about the program now?
What do I like about the program now? Well, the program itself is definitely, we saw it find its way to the number 2 spot in the country last year. Unfortunately, I would say that our offense didn't perform the way that it needed to maintain that spot. But the program itself is playing up to a standard that has been set. And, you know, it's tremendous to see how well they came together over this last season. And it's going to be even more interesting because a lot of those young guys on the offensive line, and as you know, Nathan, the offensive line along with the defensive line are probably the most important parts of your game. And those games that the Hawks lost this past season came down to some plays that a number of plays that man, it was just tough. Like it was difficult for that group on offense in terms of the offensive tackle position. So I foresee those guys with another year of growth, definitely being better. They're obviously going to lose a couple of key portions. Tyler Lindenbaum, their center, they're all American Remington award-winning center, is no longer there. Mm-hmm. Tyler Goodson, who was their top performer running back, is no longer there. So it's going to be a bit of and there are some other seniors as well as transfers, and just like every college program, you know, you got to find a way every season to figure out what's next. So it's going to be interesting to see who steps up. But I think that Hawkeye Nation has a whole lot of confidence in what they saw in Gavin Williams in that bowl game down in Citrus Bowl against Kentucky. So I think that the Hawks have a great opportunity to repeat as Big Ten West Conference champions. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how it plays out this season. But it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. So how often do you go back to their games?
So I have gone back every year. I've gone back once or twice every year. So yeah, this past season we went back to Penn State. I would say we went back to Iowa City when they played against Penn State, and then we also went to Indianapolis to go to the Big Ten championship game. So got to see one huge win and then one heartbreaking. I say heartbreaking because it was a little bit. It was decided before first quarter was over, but it was tremendous to see that ride for those young men.
So obviously, after your college career, you didn't get drafted. You were undrafted, and you got the opportunity with the Vikings, Detroit Lions. But I feel like your career got started when you went to Green Bay. You spent 4 years in Green Bay. But how tough? Before we get to the Green Bay situation, how tough was it for you as a player, getting the opportunity, but unpacking, packing, getting cut, and then going to a different team, doing the same thing in the same year? But finally, eventually, the Packers giving you a chance to start your career.
So I would say that to start my career in Minnesota was a blessing. Honestly, I wanted to be drafted just like every other player that plays football and gets the opportunity. You want to be drafted. You would love to see your name scroll across the screen or hear your name said by the commissioner. Those things would have been awesome, but it's not for everybody. And for me, it was one of the most humbling experiences to have to fight and claw and scratch to create the career for myself. So the opportunity in Minnesota, being on a roster with some really good superstars such as Randy Moss, Dante Culpepper, and the likes, man, it was a tremendous opportunity to get to know about some pros and learn how to be a professional football player. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Then I ended up with the opportunity in Detroit later on that season. And, again, just the opportunity to be around some guys like, what's my name, Big Baby, Sean Rodgers, Corey Redding, Dan Wilkinson, some of the guys that played the position at a very high level. So to see those guys perform, to see those guys' work ethic. When I got my opportunity in Green Bay, really on the practice squad, being there for 5 years, it really took work. It took a lot more for me to have to get the career going. So it meant that much more for me. So I don't know that if I did not get my path to go that way, I don't know if I'd been drafted. If any of that would happen, I don't know if I'd have made my career to be out as long as I did, or that I would have had as much drive as I did to push as long as I did. So yeah, I think that it was as difficult as it was. Those first couple of years, it was definitely great to be in a couple of different locker rooms and see how pros play. And then when I got the opportunity in Green Bay, when they gave me the opportunity on practice squad in my first year, being on that and then taking advantage of it when my number was called, and not looking back once it did. So it was a great opportunity, and I don't think that my career goes the way that it does had it not gone the way that it did, so to speak.
Yeah, that's crazy. And how was it? How grateful are you that the Green Bay Packers came calling for you? They were interested in you and they believed in you. And what was the call like with the late Ted Thompson?
So interestingly enough, it was the thing about football is every single week of the season, every NFL team they're constantly evaluating talent. They're constantly looking for talent. They're constantly bringing talent in to see what perhaps they may be able to bring to the table. I still remember after I had been released by Detroit, getting on the flights and going to go work out for the Atlanta Falcons, and then being in Atlanta watching the game, watching a Monday night game against, and it was Green Bay, and Green Bay was playing. I can tell you who they were playing, but I remember watching the game, and the defensive tackle in the game went down, got injured. And I remember thinking at that point, I could be one play away from getting an opportunity on this team, on that team, or any other team. And that very next day, I got the phone call from my agent because I was getting ready to head back home. He gave me the call to head to Green Bay. So it was a great opportunity. I did not, however, Ted Thompson was not the GM at that time. It was Mike. So it was one of those unique situations where head coach was the head coach as well as the GM, and Mike Sherman. Mike Sherman was the head coach / GM. So it was a very unique situation, and he didn't get opportunity to keep it for too long. He got that role stripped from him, but it was man, it was just a whirlwind of elation to okay, it's time to put in the work that I know I need to really push this opportunity as far as I can.
Yeah, so over the years, actually in the beginning of your Packers career, you got to play with Brett Favre, Ramon Green, Michael Wall, which we had Michael Wall on the show also, and you played with Donald Driver. Explain your beginning of the career with the Packers and what was that like, and coming in and playing in front of those Packer fans, Lambeau Field, man, toughest place to play in.
No question. It is definitely one of those places that's just it's mystic in terms of when you if you ever get an opportunity to go there. There's nothing really like Lambeau Field and the mystique of Lambeau Field. It really is something else. But yeah, to go in the locker room and be around guys like Brett Favre and Amon Green and Mike Wall, like you mentioned, and Donald Driver, who was a dear friend, close friend, almost was considered a brother of mine. It's you can kind of go in thinking, hey, I've seen these guys play on TV, and these are those guys, and they've been in the Super Bowl and all this kind of stuff, and you get around them, and they're just as normal, if not more crazy, if not more, down to earth than anything that you can ever imagine. Just some of the jokes that Brett would say, and you could hear his loud, deep voice coming down the hallway, and he never like isolated himself from the team whatsoever. Even though he was much older than most of the guys that were on the team, he never isolated himself. He was always a part of the team in every way. And so it was great being in a place like Green Bay, because it was coming from a place like Iowa City, it was so similar in the small town feel. It was already being in the Midwest, it had a very similar feel. So it kind of felt like a continuation of what my college career was like. So Green Bay, Wisconsin, it's nothing like it. One of the best places to play in the National Football League. And I was blessed to have spent 5 years of my career there.
Yeah, so speaking of the Green Bay Packers are always known for their defense. They always had great defenses, obviously with the offense too. So what was it like being part of that defense? Obviously, you played with Nick Barnett over the years, and if you want to go and move forward in your career, you got Clay Matthews came in, B.J. Raji. You can go down the list. So what was it like being part of the Green Bay Packers defense?
So it was pretty awesome, actually. So even the guys I played with, so some of those guys were a little bit after me, but playing with guys like Nick Barnett, Nick Collins. I mean, honestly, I should probably put this guy's name first, Charles Woodson. He was really the most dominant in the secondary. Obviously defensive player of the year a couple years back then as well. So, man, we had some tremendous players along with Kabir Baja-Biamila, Ryan Pickett, who's a dear friend of mine, Cullen Jenkins, Corey Williams, Johnny Jolly, a lot of Michael Montgomery, like you mentioned earlier, Aaron Catlin, who I played with. Al Harris, yes, Al Harris as well. We had a lot of great players and guys. I really got the job done, man. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun being a part of those teams and being a part of those programs. So yeah, and to see some of those guys and what they're doing now, and what I know Al has been on staff with the Cowboys and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been pretty awesome to follow those guys and see what they're doing in their careers. And really, it was tremendous to try and just keep up with those guys and being a part of those units, because we had some really awesome battles, really good times back then.
Yeah, I'm a Cowboy fan, so so I'm happy that we have Al Harris on the team, but Mike McCarthy, he's good, but he needs to step it up a little bit.
That's funny. It's funny you say that. People are either you either love the Cowboys or you hate them. There's no in between. There's no indifferent. Like I don't understand why it is that people have such a deep hatred for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Why is that? Can you tell me why that is?
I don't know, because we're America's team, and we always because Stephen A. Smith always hates on our Cowboys, and but my father brought me up as a Cowboy fan, so I bleed blue and silver until I die. So I'm hoping I get to see another Super Bowl in Dallas in the Dallas Cowboys franchise. But I mean, to be honest, I think one issue why fans hate our team is because we're America's team still, and some because people think that we think that we're always going to win the Super Bowl, but we always they think we overreact on some stuff. That's why.
Well, I would say every year Cowboys have a chance to win the Super Bowl, but I would say everybody's whatever fan of whatever team they are, that I'm sure that they feel the same way. But I really thought that the Cowboys had it going this year. I thought that they had a chance to run the table, but man, it was, you know what, they got knocked off by a tough team that's, you know, that they're still playing. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Cowboys are they really America's team though? I mean, they had that title some years ago, but it's crazy. I don't know. That's a debatable statement, man. Yeah. I don't know.
That's a good debate, but in my opinion, I think we're still America's team.
We could probably go back and forth all day with that one,
man. Yeah, that's a good debate to have. Actually, that's a good topic to talk about on the show. So I want to ask you about Charles Woodson. What was it like playing with him? What did you learn from? What was the main thing that you learned from him? And obviously, this got enshrined into the Hall of Fame. Congrats to him, and what a great player.
So I had the opportunity to play with Charles, I think 3 years out there with the Packers, and just the thing about Charles that stands out for me when I think back on it, it was just the work ethic. You know, there are those that understand how to play the game, those who understand how to prepare for the game, and this man understood how to prepare. I didn't understand quite how to prepare, and definitely it was interesting for me because I would watch him at times, because especially when we were on our away trips, he was actually, we would fly up from Green Bay to wherever, he would actually sit kind of next to me, diagonal across the aisle from me, and I would always kind of see him. It was back in the early 2000s, and he would have this mini DVD player, and he would always be watching the opponent, watching what his opponent is doing. And he was always doing it. And he was always studying his opponents. And it paid off for him because of how he obviously performed on the field. And, you know, I think that's one of the main things that I remember from Charles Woodson is, you know, a cool guy. You know, you got a lot of cool guys that come through, and if you get an opportunity to play with, most guys you play with are going to be cool, but just the level of preparation that he brought to the game really spoke to why he was as successful as he was.
Yeah, so we have another fan question in here. One of our fans is a huge Packers fan, and he wants to know, obviously throughout your year, you got to play with Aaron Rodgers. He wants to know, what was it like playing with Aaron Rodgers on the field, off the field? What was he like in the locker room? And also, this fan wants to know, the big question is, will he stay or go?
So what was A-Rod like? So I knew Aaron when he first got drafted there. What year was that? Like 2006 or so. I don't know. But you know, him having to sit those first couple of years, been, you know, not as recognizable name-wise and whatnot, but definitely had the talent. We saw the talent every day in practice. You know, he picked our defense apart and made our defenses better because of how well he threw the ball, and we knew that he had the ability to perform on the field, but he was just young and he was sitting behind Brett at that point. I still remember at the time, we talked earlier about Donald Driver.
Yeah,
I remember back in the day we were going down to Donald Driver's. We were in Green Bay, my wife and I and Donald and everybody. We were in Green Bay, but we were going down to Dallas for Donald's golf tournament, and we were going on a private plane to go down there. And it was my wife, Donald, myself, and Aaron were flying down there. And Aaron it's one of those smaller planes, so we kind of felt every bump, and Aaron was kind of shook. He was a little bit, you could feel a little shook off every little bounce, but it was kind of funny. My wife was kind of there to console him a little bit, and just it was just a cool guy. And he says, I remember he said to my wife, he says, am I ever going to get a chance to play, being behind Brett Favre? And it was like, dude, you're going to be up next. You got nothing to worry about. Wow. And he's obviously proven himself that to be true. So it's, when you get an opportunity to be a part of the game and see some of these guys as they mature through the game, you never know who's going to do what, especially in the world of football. You assume that the guys that your team are drafting, you assume they're going to be that next big thing. You always assume that to be the truth. But more often than not, more than half of those guys that you see drafted, especially on the first day, don't make it to their second contract. More often than not, those guys don't make it because a lot of times the talent that you have on the field in college doesn't necessarily transfer, whether it be mental, physical, whatever it may be. So to see a guy like Aaron Rodgers, to see him, we all saw him on draft day back in the day, sit in the draft room and, be upset and whatnot, and them taking him off stage and then him getting that call late from the Packers and to look at that to look at how his career has gone up until now. It's been tremendous, and you just never know what's going to happen in the world of football. And then to answer your question, is he going to stay a Packer? It's a good question. I know they got a lot of cap problems. Don't they got like 60 million or something like that over cap? So I don't know if they're going to be able to keep him. It's going to be a tough one. Especially didn't the Broncos just hire the offensive coordinator as head coach?
Yeah, actually, I'm the first one to report that. I predicted that way before on my friend, I was on one of my friends' shows, and I told all my friends that Packers are going to get Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, the Broncos are going to get Nathaniel Hackett, and look what they did. They got Nathaniel Hackett. So.
In all honesty, that could be one of those ploys to try and draw Aaron away from Green Bay. He's already voiced interest in leavings after 2020's debacle, 2021 playoff debacle. So he's already expressed interest in leaving. So there's no telling. This is a business. Yeah. Listen, you mentioned earlier being on the team with guys like Brett and Donald. So I know a lot of inner workings, and to see a guy like Brett Favre, who me watching the Packers growing up and then being a part of the team, I could never have thought what would have happened. I would never have thought he would have been traded to the Jets and then end up in Minnesota to play against this former team. I never thought would have happened. So anything can happen. This is the NFL. Nothing is set in stone.
Wow. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And what a good question from one of our fans. He's a big Packer fan who just joined in here, and he actually just said thank you, Colin Cole, for having 5 great years with Green Bay. So that's what he just said. So
I appreciate it. Go.
Yeah. So I want to ask you now. Obviously, I'm just curious. What do you say? Tell our fans. What do you say that going up against Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Hasselbeck, the late Tavares Jackson, Cam Newton in practices? What do you say that you became a better player throughout your career going against those quarterbacks in practice?
I got a chance to see those guys in practice. And yes, those guys definitely helped our team, but I was more working against our offensive line, and those guys were what made me better. You talked about Mike Walls, the Mike Walls of the world, the Chris Spencers of the world, the guys that I practiced against on a daily basis. But to see those guys, it's crazy, man. You can't really tell. Like you're part of a team, you watch the practice, you can't really tell how good you are, right? You can tell sometimes how good a player is, but you can't really tell. Like I remember watching Brett in practice sometimes throw the ball, and you're like, man, I can't believe more guys' fingers don't snap off of their hands with how hard he throws that ball. You know what I mean? And then to watch Aaron in practice, and they used to set up the drill when we first, back in the day, early 2000s, they had this the trash can drill where he's like 70 yards away and tries to pinpoint, drop it in there. They were doing that for years, even back when Brett was there. And they were for years missing that thing. And then they started making it. It was like, and just to see the maturation of how much that drill and just all the other workings kind of played into how well he has played over his career. And then, just like you mentioned with Matt and some of those guys, man, just tremendous athletes, guys that did their job at a high level, and just to be a part of it was amazing.
Yeah. So what would you say before we get to your Seahawks and Carolina Panthers career? What would you say your best moment was as a Green Bay Packer?
Best moment as a Packer. I would say my best moment as a Packer would have had to been that's a tough one, because when we went to the NFC Championship in 2007, I was on injury reserve because I had a broken forearm from Thanksgiving Day game. Oh. So I loved watching that season. Like, we had a tremendous season. I think we finished 13-3 or something like that, and we had a tremendous season. But I didn't finish that season. So that following season, I played quite a bit more, and it was Aaron's first season, and we had some really good games that year. So that 2008 season in Green Bay was pretty cool. Some of those games, playing against Peyton Manning and some of those other games, and it just the whole of it was pretty cool in the 2008 season.
Did you were you the type of player that you got to jump into the fans in Lambeau Field?
I never got a chance to Lambeau leap. I wish I would have. I never got my hands on the ball in terms of running with it. So yeah, I missed that opportunity. But I don't know if I'd have made it up that wall. It looks pretty easy, but the wall's kind of tall. So I don't know if I got the vertical to be able to have made it up there. I'd have to find out the small wall. That's what I had to do.
Yeah. So after your Green Bay career, you go to Seattle, another great franchise, great organization, and you got to play with Matt Hasselbeck, TJ, Nate Burleson, my guy. We had him on the show too. Toe drag swag, as you call them. Yeah. So when you got to Seattle, what was it like being playing in front of the 12th man? That's another tough place to play in, by the way.
No question. I played for some really good franchises. That's for certain. Really did. And to go from Green Bay to Seattle was tremendous opportunity. That was Jim Mora's first year as head coach. Unfortunately, his only year as head coach, but it brought me in there, and I was their guy, and it was a great feeling to finally be on a team where I was just definitely the guy, and it was we had a good time. And then, man, to play in that stadium at the time, man, it was. The 12th man was real. I didn't know anything about it, other than I played there a couple of times as a Packer. I played there, but didn't really understand it until I was there on a consistent basis. And man, that place really was the loudest, or is the loudest, outdoor stadium in the NFL. I could say Kansas City has a close second to it, but Seattle City. I don't even know what the name is. It's CenturyLink when I was
CenturyLink.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So So yeah, it's CenturyLink gets to a level of craziness. I had the opportunity to be there 2010 when we made that playoff run and played against the New Orleans Saints, the defending Super Bowl champ, the New Orleans Saints, and I was there for that beast mode run, and just the energy and the sound, that crowd that night, and the energy from that, it was unreal. There's nothing else like it, and it was tremendous to play in Seattle.
It's called Lumen Field now. Lumen.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of Coach Jim Mora, actually, we had the opportunity to have him on the show too. What a great guy to talk to, and now obviously he's got their UConn job as a head football coach. So congrats to him. Well deserved. So for you, what was it like playing underneath him for that 1 year? What did you learn from Jim Mora?
Jim was a good coach. He was definitely a defensive guy. His specialty was the defensive backs. So we had him in a bunch of our meetings, and he was just a really cool guy. And just to be around him. His energy was definitely just one of those that transfers onto you. And it was just he demanded a lot out of you and wanted a lot of you, but he didn't really get the opportunity to really turn his team the way he wanted to. But the NFL is a funny business, man. It really is. We see coaches that get 1 years, sometimes get 1 year and are not given more than that. This was one of those situations. I wish that he had more of an opportunity to kind of instill his team and his system, but that's the way it worked out. But I learned a lot from him. Very, very humble, but very, very meticulous coach and teacher. So yes, my hat's off to Jim Mora. He's going to do a fantastic job up there at UConn.
Yeah, and obviously his father is a famous one. Playoffs. You talk about playoffs.
That's right. Right. Yep.
Yeah, but so I want to ask you about beast mode, Marshawn Lynch. What was it like playing? What was he like? Obviously, press conference, he doesn't give you anything, but actually his press conferences are legendary, in my opinion. But for you, what was it like being his teammate on the field, off the field? And obviously he's when the game is on, he is locked in. He's no playing games. So what was it like just seeing him go about his business?
Marshawn was as down to earth an individual as you would run into. I remember when he first came to Seattle, when I was there, he came there, he had himself for those that know out there, he had himself I think it was a 96 Chevy Caprice or a Chevy Impala. And for those that know, what I'm saying, that's a car that a lot of guys kind of like. A lot of guys, it's an older car and that type of deal. And it was sitting up high with 26-inch rims under it. And I was like, this is my type of guy. This type of guy that I could be cool with right here. And just to be around, he's just such a down to earth man, but got on the field and turned into a different person. And I think the biggest thing about everybody, all of them, is just their want and desire to be great, and their want and desire to perform at the highest possible level. And Marshawn Lynch was no different. And obviously his career proved it, and he was definitely did a tremendous job throughout his time, especially obviously over the last couple of years in Seattle. And
what was it like being part of the Seattle's defense, Legion of Boom? Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Brendan Browner. Amazing defense.
Yep. It was definitely a tremendous defense. So when I got there, they brought in Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. And so those guys, to see them mature over the years and to see what that defense became even after I was gone, it just really spoke to how smart Pete Carroll was in the way he wanted his defenses to be. Because every team I'd been a part of prior to that, you didn't have cornerbacks that were 6 foot plus out there playing on the corner, playing out there on the edge. And he definitely found a way to get some guys out there that could move, but then could also beat up wide receivers. And that's what they did. They beat up wide receivers. Yeah. And for the lack of better words, were rewarded for being able to do so. And it was amazing to see how well that group played, and complementary to the guys up front as well as in the linebacker core. And those guys have were together for a lot of years, and that was the key to their success.
Yeah. So I write articles for the Seahawks. I work for Fansided also. It's a thing, and then I work for this website called 12th Man Rising. So it's a unbelievable. One of my friends told me about this, and now I don't write articles right now because of off season. But when I started writing articles with the Seahawks, even though they were struggling this year, but they still have a great franchise, and then I love the way they go about their business. And for you, throughout the years when you were there, 2 years, what would you say your best experience was there in Seattle?
Like I said, just being out there for that playoff win against the New Orleans Saints, it was definitely the highlight of my time being there in terms of with the magnitude of that game, considering the season that we'd had. We were the first sub 500 team to ever make a playoff game and then go on to win said playoff game. So we had a very difficult season in that 2010 season. I at that time had missed, I want to say 6 games due to an injury. So it was a bit of a difficult time, but to see how we were able to finish out that season and to be in that playoff game and to see everything go our way, which it hadn't happened like that all season, but to see how it all went our way against the defending Super Bowl champ, really gave us a sense of a championship game. And it was a tremendous game to be a part of. I will never forget it. That's for sure. Yep.
So now obviously after your Seahawks career, you go to Carolina Panthers, another great organization, and you got to play Cam Newton, Mike Tolbert, D'Angelo Williams, Brandon LaFell, Steve Smith Sr. You got to, on the defensive side, Greg Hardy, Charles Johnson, Thomas Davis. So what was that like when you got to Carolina?
So I got to Carolina. It was a unique situation because after I was in Seattle, I had actually had a pretty serious injury, and so I ended up having to miss football for 2 years. I had to be out of the game for 2 years, and so it was to get the opportunity to be a part of that Carolina Panther franchise. It was a great. I mean, I couldn't put into words how important it was for me to get kind of a second chance in my career after a particularly difficult injury. And so yeah. Going down there and then being in that, being a part of that group, it was different. It was different. Up until that point, I'd had 9 years of my career, and I'd been coached by different coaches, and it was tremendous. But when I got to Carolina and I was playing under Eric Washington, that was my best defensive line coach in my NFL career. I was later in my career, but I learned more in my time in Carolina than I had throughout my career playing in the NFL. And so playing with guys like Luke Eagley and Thomas Davis, like you mentioned, just the attention to detail that Luke Keithley had and the work that he put into it. I still remember that 2013 season. I believe that was his defensive MVP season. Just the way that our defense and our team were clicking, it was just on another level. And it was tremendous to be a part of it. Again, with the guys like you mentioned, like Cam Newton and Steve Smith and D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart and Mike Tolbert. I mean, the list goes on and on. Brandon LaFell. These guys were tremendous athletes and were led by a guy who was, man, I mean, when Cam Newton first came out and busted on the scenes, I mean, there was nobody. I mean, I saw this guy run over linebackers, like literally run through linebackers. And it was like when he was on, there's nothing that could possibly stop him. And as most of us already know, but to be on the sideline and watch him perform on throughout that season was really just tremendous. And all of the supplementary players, like you mentioned, with Steve Smith and all the other players, it was everybody played up to a different level. And it was tremendous to be a part of that team.
Yeah, so speaking of Luke Eagley, what a great linebacker he was, great player, but he had a lot of injuries throughout his career. So if he wasn't injured, he would have been still playing right now, actually, in my opinion. So what was it like playing with Luke Eagley? And the fortunate thing is that he kept getting injuries.
You know what? Like I said, he was just such a student of the game. Like I mentioned about Charles Woodson, it was just the only other person that I ever saw that actually put that amount of time and effort and energy into his preparation. And for such a young player, it was remarkable to see how focused and how attention to detail he was, and how much he actually, a lot of the stuff he was saying was actually good keys. Like sometimes when you're on a football field, you'll hear guys, there'll be guys in terms of linebackers will say different things to try to key you in on certain things, but a lot of times you tune them out because they don't know what you're talking about. But a guy like Luke Eagley, you knew that if he was saying something, it was actually some merit to it because he was putting that time and effort into it. And a lot of times he was right. So tremendous talent that was a student of the game, but more so than just being a student, more so than just being talented, he's a tremendous man. And when he stepped on the field, the person that we saw in the locker room and joked around with in the locker room and all that kind of stuff, that person completely transformed. I've never seen anybody quite like it. So tremendous player to play with.
Yeah, so tell our fans, this is a two-part questions. Tell our fans about your experience, your best moment as a Carolina Panther, best experience as a Panther. And also the next part, what does hashtag keep pounding mean to you?
Keep pounding. So that 2013 season, when my first year coming back from my injuries and being out for those 2 years, the entire season was tremendous. You know, we had some amazing wins and played some amazing games, and you know, just to have gone through it and the entirety of it, honestly, because again, I felt like my career was over, and for the most part, when guys play in this profession, you have an injury that keeps you out for a year, you're done. I had an injury that kept me out for 2 years.
Wow.
And I was able to come back. And so for me to have had that happen and then to play on, I felt like I had a second chance at my career.
Yeah.
And took fully advantage of it. And so every aspect of that year, every aspect of 2013 really was my favorite in terms of just being able to come back from a serious injury and to perform and do what I was passionate about again.
Yeah, I think you just said your keep the next part to and I think you just answered the hashtag keep pounding. That's right. That is right there. That's really inspiring. Coming back from an injury, sitting out for 2 years, coming back from that, keep still playing. I think that's right there. The definition of keep pounding, right there. There it is.
That's right, brother. I kept pounding. That's for sure. I would say that was my definition of it. That's for sure.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to athletes now that are trying to reach to their goals, and they might have a longer way to get to their goal, but what advice would you give them?
Athletes that want to perform at the highest level, well, first and foremost, there's an understanding, you know, in terms of whether or not you can. Because I think that sometimes people don't understand that there's really not an opportunity, right? I think that people hold on to possibilities, but there are a lot. We know that there are a lot of colleges. We know there are a lot of kids that want to get into college. 1 million plus kids every year that are vying for positions to be on college. There's even a micro fraction of that get opportunity to play in the NFL. Because again, you're dealing with grown men who have a job and you have to try and take a job. So if you have it in you, and for myself, again, I wasn't drafted. I was a free agent. I was cut 4 times before I played a meaningful down of football. And what kept me from being deterred, or what kept me motivated to keep pushing, was the fact that I saw that my talent was not that far off from the guys around me. I knew I belonged there. I just had to find the right opportunity. So for those of you that feel like you have something in your life that you want to pursue, you know, don't always believe that the first no, or the first time somebody's cut you, or the first time you're fired, don't believe that that's the end of your career, especially if you see that you can do it. You know, you just got to keep finding. You got to find the person, or find the team, or find a program that's looking for you, and that's where you can succeed. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't Minnesota, it wasn't Detroit, it was Green Bay, and I was able to find that as my home, and I didn't look back once I got my opportunity there.
Well, yeah. So we got more fan questions coming in here. The first one is, Who was the funniest teammate that you played with?
Who was the funniest teammate that I played with? Let's see. That's a tough one. We all used to crack jokes back in Green Bay. It used to be a lot of fun there. Yeah, it was a lot of fun in Green Bay. We used to have a lot of fun. I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't have an answer for that one. I don't have an answer. We all have fun.
And our other fan wants to know, what's your nickname?
Colin Cole, Big C. And when I was growing up, my friends called me Debo. From the character from Friday, they used to call me Debo. When I got to Carolina Panthers, Sam Mills Jr., the son of Sam Mills, who came up with the quote "Keep pounding," he used to call me Big Snacks because I would always bring snacks into our meetings to help keep me awake. I used to have something to chew on to keep me awake in meetings, so he would call me Big Snacks. So yeah, I had a couple of them, but Big C, that's it.
Wow. Yeah, so let's I want to talk about your podcast. It's called Legends of Kinnick. How did that come about, and what's it been like for you having the podcast and seeing the game from a different aspect now?
So to have the podcast, it's definitely been a good opportunity. I've had fun doing it. I haven't recorded any shows in quite some time, unfortunately. But it's really been a great time. I've had a lot of fun just kind of giving guys the opportunity to talk about their careers and talk about their experiences while being a Hawkeye. And it was, it's a unique place. At one point Iowa was ranked the #1 party school in America. A lot of people wouldn't have known that, or thought anything about that, but it has offered a lot of unique experiences to its many alumni. And so once I got done with broadcast school, which I attended in 2018, it was really what started as schoolwork in terms of going towards my broadcasting schooling ended up being something that I enjoyed doing. And so it kind of took off, and then it stuttered a little bit, but it's time for me to get those shows rolling again. And other than that, I do a couple of other podcasts as well, just to keep it fresh and keep it current. But yeah, I have fun doing it.
Yeah. So speaking of interviews, actually we shared this on our story. You got to interview your former teammate Cam Newton. So what was that like, interviewing your former teammate?
It was cool. The cool part about it is he definitely, so being on this side of it, being on the media side of it, you kind of see, I have knowledge obviously of how players feel when they go into media requests like that, and how it's typically not a great mood overall, because you typically, at the end of the day, it's typically after you've gone through practice and meetings and you're tired and you're ready to go home and that sort of thing. And I was watching obviously throughout, and again, being on that Zoom, watching his demeanor throughout the meeting, he was definitely at that point where he was just, and again, it was coming back after being out for all that time. So he was happy to be doing it, but he wasn't, he didn't have the energy. And then when I asked my question, and I stepped in and I asked my question, I could see his demeanor fully change. And it was more of an honest answer to a question that probably most others wouldn't think about, especially a guy like myself who spent some significant time away from the game. It's you have a different perspective when you're away and you get an opportunity to come back. And so when I asked him that, it definitely took him to a place that made him think about, how grateful he was to have that opportunity. And regardless of how their season went, he definitely he got an opportunity to go out on his own way. So that's I appreciate the fact that the Panthers organization let him do that. And it's tough because most players in the NFL, as well as any professional career, most guys don't go out on their own when they feel like it. Most times it's taken away from them. So it's good for a guy like that to be able to do that.
Well, we got to put Colin Cole on ESPN. That was That was a great question by you, by the way. And I saw that video when you posted it, and you know the great thing when athletes ask questions to other athletes, I feel like they know more stuff about them because obviously you played against them or you played with them. So I think that's one key thing being an athlete where you know more about the player, which means you can get more out of when they answer.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree with you. Absolutely. And I felt like I got a more honest, heartfelt answer than a generic one that he may have given to anybody else. But like you mentioned, you know, I knew what to ask him. I knew what I was thinking and when I was in that position of coming back, what I was feeling. And so just kind of asked him what by, you know, being in the other shoe, being with the shoe being on the other foot, him being in a similar situation, what his feelings were. And it was definitely honest, and I appreciate him for that.
Yeah, so a couple more things before we let you go. What are your thoughts so far on this NFL playoffs? Obviously, we're down to 4 teams now: Rams, 49ers, Chiefs, and Bengals. So what are your thoughts on that and the crazy coaching carousel?
Well, first, the coaching carousel. It's the NFL. That's the way it works. Every year there are 5-6 jobs that open up, and they're looking for the next Sean McVay. They're looking for the next person that's the next young innovator to come in and hopefully turn the franchise around. But you know, it's interesting more times than not, and it's unfortunate also because if you ask me, there aren't enough minority candidates that get the opportunity. Yeah. And I will shout that to the rooftops because last I checked, the NFL is 85% Black football players. Yeah. There are some tremendous candidates out there, such as Byron Leftwich, such as
Jim Caldwell,
Eric Bieniemy, Jim Caldwell, who I know personally, who has a strong track record, who turned the Detroit Lions program around when he was the head coach. These men deserve an opportunity, and we don't see them get those opportunities. So it's very frustrating to me, Nathan. It's very frustrating to me to know that there are highly talented men of color who deserve an opportunity that don't get an opportunity. So that's with the coaching carousel. Now, in terms of the playoffs, man, I mean, last week's slate of games was crazy. It's great. And I really do like the new setup for how the playoffs are run. I like how we had a Monday night game for the playoffs. Like that's never happened before. And that was it was tremendous. And we talk about this last weekend set of games. I mean, the way that every one of those games went. I mean, first and foremost, Tampa Bay. To watch that game and watch how it transpired and to see how they trailed the whole game, you know, it was like, okay, but because again, we remember the Super Bowl and what he did against the Atlanta Falcons and erased that 26 points deficit. And so I expected for him to come back. I expected for this to be just another one of those Tom Brady moments. And it became that for a moment, right? It was, okay, he did all what he's always done in the past. He led his team back and everything. And then, obviously, Stafford Cooper Cup was not, you know, I don't know how you let probably the best receiver, the Triple Crown winner of this season, down the middle of your field, wide open. I don't understand how that happens. Todd Bowles, I don't know how you let that happen, but you know, that happened, but that was a tremendous game. And then, man, I mean, just the whole slate, all 4 of them were, 3 of them came down to last second field goals.
The Chiefs and Bills was a good game too.
And then, oh man, that was probably the game of the year. That going to overtime. And I think everybody in America agrees that a rule change is in order, and I think we will see a rule change in terms of, especially in the postseason, because there are no other games that you have to get to, that you have to worry about. Because I mean, I get it. In the regular season, time has to be stuck to, and you have a certain amount of time that you have to get these games played in. And if it's overtime, it makes things difficult, longer than so much time. But in the postseason, it's a whole nother ball of wax. It's like give these guys, give both teams an opportunity to score, give both teams an opportunity to have the ball, and see what happens. I know that if Kansas City would have kicked the field goal, Buffalo would have then had the opportunity, but they were red hot. Yeah. That's all they wanted was the opportunity. And they changed the rules before in overtime. Before it was just the first team that scores wins. They changed that rule to, both teams get an opportunity if only a field goal is scored by the first team, but they're going to have to look at it again. And they're going to have to change that rule. They're going to have to, because that game was too competitive. It was too good. Like, it could have kept going. It deserved for a full quarter to be played to see who was the best in 5 quarters. Yeah.
I think in my opinion, they need to figure out how to change the overtime rules, in my opinion, to make it fair.
I agree. Maybe they look at more of the college rule, where both teams get opportunities to score until somebody can't score. Maybe they do something like that.
Hey, I might have put us some good luck in the Chiefs, because we had Patrick Mahomes' father on the show 3 weeks ago. Wow. Yeah, so you might have put some good luck on that team.
Hey, I don't know if they need a whole lot of it, Nathan, but I'm sure that was pretty cool to be able to talk to Mr. Mahomes. That was I know he had a pretty illustrious baseball career himself.
Oh, so he pitched for the Mets and a great playoff career. And he said Patrick Mahomes was locked in from day one. During that interview, he said that how I asked him how is Mahomes' mindset going into the playoffs this year. He said he's locked in, and look what he's doing right now. It's just amazing. This is have you seen? Let me ask you this. I'm just curious. Have you seen a quarter when you were playing? Have you seen? Was there a quarterback that you played against in your career that's like this, or this is the first time you're seeing like a type of quarterback that we're seeing right now with Patrick Mahomes?
I would say that with every generation, these quarterbacks are becoming more and more remarkable, but we can't forget the guys who came before. I mean, I played against a guy who was just a monster, Michael Vick, who, when he came into the league and did what he did, defenses had no idea how to defend him. Michael Vick was definitely that guy back in the 2000s, and before him, it was Randall Cunningham, and there are a long line of quarterbacks that were mobile, who made plays. And what has happened now is it's become more prominent because Black players are given the opportunity to play quarterback. To be honest with you, Nathan, it comes down to the fact that most coaches don't feel like Black quarterbacks have that ability to break down defenses and have the ability to get the teams into the right plays. And the more opportunities those guys have had to play, the more that they have shown their ability. And it's been tremendous to watch that trend. And we could just look over the course of history and look over the course of the fact that there have been more guys that have been switched to receiver or defensive back, like a Herm Edwards, who played quarterback in college, but ended up having to switch over to defensive back to play in the NFL. Or like a Warren Moon, who wanted to play quarterback and decided, hey, I'm not going to play any other position. I'll go to Canada and play a full career in Canada and win championships in Canada, and then come back to the NFL and play. So the NFL has definitely grown, and to see mobile quarterbacks more the norm is awesome. What Patrick Mahomes is doing is something that you can't teach, right? I mean, some of the stuff he's doing, the no-look passes, the throwing across the body, the way he's able to throw on the run to the left or the right equally as well. Tremendous. But I got to give credit to some of these other young guys too.
Oh, yeah.
Joe
Burrow, right?
Joe Burrow is a tremendous quarterback, but even like my man down there in Arizona, I can't think of his name right now.
Kyle Murray.
Kyle Murray is a tremendous young talent. Now, obviously, as the weapons continue to grow around him, that helps him. Let's not forget also, Patrick Mahomes has a guy by the name of Tyreek Hill, who is definitely a player that you put him on any team, he makes that team better. And so that's and I don't know that they come back and win that game with 13 seconds without Tyreek Hill and what he was able to do, right? So he's definitely one of the top quarterbacks of today, and he leads the class right now. But it's been a class that's been growing, and there are a lot of seats. There are a lot of guys that are taking seats at that table. We know, like you said, Kyle Murray, and obviously Lamar Jackson, and Justin Fields out there in Chicago. your guy Dak. I mean, all these guys, all these guys have mobility. All these guys have tremendous talent, and given the opportunity, these guys will lead their teams just like they have. And Patrick Mahomes is in an ideal situation, given the talent around him and given the talent of his coaches, Eric Bieniemy and Coach Reed. So Coach Dan Reed. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping Beverly gets a chance, man. This guy has been through a lot of interviews and that still hasn't got a chance yet. But I think the problem is that he has a amazing job with Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think I feel like that he doesn't want to leave that job yet. He loves coaching there, but at some point, I think he will get a head coaching job because he's a great offensive coordinator in my opinion, for sure.
Yeah. And I think when you say that, it's a lot like the situation with Josh McDaniels.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, being up there in New England, he struck out. He went out and became a head coach. He was the head coach in Denver. I played against them when I was in Seattle, and he didn't do very well when he was in Denver. And so, a lot of times, and we see a lot of those coaches that leave New England, they go off, but they don't do well. From Weiss to Romeo Crennel to Matt Patricia, who just got fired in Detroit, his disciples don't do a tremendous job when they leave. But as a part of the Patriots team, they're doing well. So guys like Josh McDaniels is the guy that comes to mind. So yeah, Eric Bieniemy, why leave? You have one of the top talents, MVP caliber talents in the league. You go to another team, you don't know what you got, and then you could be out in a year or two trying to find another job. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yep. So the last two things here, our team is part of this foundation. It's called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. He's a former NFL coach. He's now the head coach for Grambling State. We're trying to help him prevent human trafficking, making sure the community stays safe, the kids stay safe. So we'll send you the foundation so you can go check it out.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and all the essential workers right now?
All of the essential workers, I appreciate you. And I am vaccinated, so I'm trying to make your job easier. So I appreciate what you've done and what you continue to do. And I pray and hope that those individuals that come into contact with you don't bring anything to you that will bring you harm. So thank you all very much for what you do for us. There could not be us here today right now without what you've been able to do in your jobs.
Yeah, well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 969 with former Iowa NFL defensive tackle Colin Cole. Played for the Green Bay Packers, Seattle Seahawks, Carolina Panthers. Man, and he has a couple of nicknames, Big C, Big Snacks. Go follow him on all social media formats. You got your podcast, Legends of Kinnick. I'm hoping you guys bring it back soon. You guys are doing a great job with that. But thank you again for coming on the show, and thank you to our fans who tuned in and asked questions also to Colin. But keep up the great work, man. You brought the snacks today. Talk about your career and your journey. But we would love to have you back on the show at some point down the line so you can meet the full team. But man, this is truly an honor. I'm glad this happened finally, and thank you again.
The pleasure is all mine. I thank you for having me on, brother. You take care of yourself. All right.
Thank you.
All right.